Hello everyone, Andrew Martin here, and welcome to my BCM Game of the Month for August 2012. The game we're about to see is by no means a masterpiece, but it's a thought-provoking game which gives rise to some interesting play in the Scandinavian defence. It's a game from the European Championship, which was played in Plovdiv, and it's a game between two hardly household names, but between two players who obviously favour original chess. Oharon is playing with the white pieces, grade 2288, and he's playing Oharon-Alonso Rosell, whose grade at the time was 2513. The variation in question is the line where black, after knight c3, plays queen to d6. In recent times, this move has almost superseded queen a5 as the main line of the Scandinavian. For a long time, black players didn't like the queen on d6 because they just thought, well, after d4, white can play knight e2, bishop f4 hitting the queen, and this variation puts black's whole idea to bed. Well, it's not quite as simple as that to refute the black setup. Usually, if white executes this plan, then black can respond with a move like queen to b4 or queen to b6. So the onus is still on white to prove that this queen d6 move is dubious. Well, knight f6 was played by black, knight f3 by white, and now comes a departure from the norm. We've come to expect that black should play a6 in this position. And if black is left unmolested, he gets a pretty good game here, just by treating this position like a kind of queen's gambit accepted. You go e6, you go b5, you go bishop b7, you go knight bd7, and eventually you get c5 in. Bronstein, in a few games, showed the efficiency of this idea. Well, white players have come to realise that perhaps g3 is the stiffest test of a6, and this is where the battleground lies in this line at the moment. What makes our featured game so interesting is that Alonso Rosell departs from this variation, playing the interesting g6, and that's a move I hadn't seen many times before. g6, well, black's just planning to complete his development with bishop to g7 and castles. He's saying he's not worried by moves such as knight b5, and that he can negotiate any complications that might occur over the next few moves, thanks to the position, the unorthodox position of his queen on d6. And indeed, we have already reached a critical position. Now imagine my surprise when I was researching this game to find a game between Carlsen and Kramnik in this line. I couldn't even have imagined that such a game would exist, yet they debated this line in Moscow 2009. And there Carlsen did indeed play knight b5, Kramnik played queen b6, and Carlsen played c4. Now just going back, white could go bishop f4 in this position. Black obviously has to play knight a6. Now it's up to white to kind of justify the position of this knight on b5, because of course black's going to hit it straight away with c6. If white tries to force matters with c4 and then c5, we go queen a5 check, queen d8, knight c3, and now knight c7, when black has strong control over the d5 square. I doubt white has any advantage at all in this position. So going back to Kramnik versus Carlsen versus Kramnik, Carlsen played the immediate c4, black plays c6, white played knight c3, not committing his c-pawn, bishop g7, bishop e2, castles, and now Kramnik played bishop g4, with a position that one could easily get from certain variations of the Alekhine or the Caro-Kann. Well, that's one interesting way to go after g6. White can also try g3 in this position, bishop g7, and now bishop f4. Again, this is very forcing play. Black should play queen b4 in this position, taking up the gauntlet. And then after queen d2, we have two very interesting lines. I think the most reliable move for black in this position is actually knight c6. If knight b5, we take off the queens and then we castle. And I don't think white can get anywhere after knight takes c7 due to the excellent move here, bishop g4. Going back to queen d2, queen takes b2 is very, very sharp. And after rook b1, queen a3, knight b5, we have the crazy line, queen takes f3, knight takes c7 check, king d8, knight takes a8, queen takes h1, and now queen a5 check, b6, queen takes a7 with crazy complications. Well, if you want to go in for this line, you better be well prepared. There was an old Alonso Rosell game from 2010 where white actually played bishop g2 in this position, and now black played a further interesting move here, queen to a6. So there's some unexplored corners in this line that players of an original bent might like to examine. Let's go back to our featured game after g6 and white played knight e5. Black played bishop g7 and now white played f4. I recall a game between Kasparov and Anand from their World Championship match. Was it in 1995 that looked something like this? I think that was in the queen a5 line where white put his knight on e5 and black put the bishop on e6. Something like this. I think that's the type of game that Oharon was trying to emulate when he played this plan. Just dropping back again, this is a critical position. There was a game Pokorna versus Schneider, played in 2008, where white went bishop f4. Black went knight h5, white went knight b5, and now the game got extremely sharp after queen d8 and then queen to f3. Black castled, Pokorna played bishop c4, and now a very original move here, bishop e6, which, believe it or not, solves black's problems. Pokorna castled on the queen side, and now black's best move, which wasn't played in the game, was knight takes f4. I think this is safest, just angle for liquidation, and then we have the excellent queen d5 in this position, which actually points up a number of weaknesses in white's camp. Well, you know, if white has to put one of his knights on a3 in this position in order to hold it together, then black must be okay. Going back to bishop g7, well, white can also play bishop e2. That's obviously a normal move. He can also play bishop c4. Perhaps best after that is to castle and then knight bd7, something like this. a5, a4, knight bd5, bishop d2, c6. This is a typical line, and black has a respectable position. The upcoming plan might include moves like bishop e6 and then the knight dropping back to c7. All this is borrowed from the modern variation of the Alekhine, which is very similar. Let's just have a look now what happened in the game. White went f4, black castled. White went bishop e3, and now black went bishop f5. I like black's free-flowing development in this position. I mean, it's taken white a little bit of time to set up this idea of reinforcing his knight on e5. Black should be okay if he sticks to the basics. Just development will do. White played bishop d3. Black took it off, and now queen comes across to a6. Well, already this was the first moment where black's play could be improved. I mean, why doesn't black just simply stick with knight bd7 in this position, and after castles simply play c6? If white tries to advance on the king side, then we just go rook fd8, king b1, and now a5. This type of play would have given black the sharp situation that he wanted, and black has plenty of play in this position. This would have been fine for black. The game continuation is puzzling, as queen a6 was played. White castled on the queen side. Black played c6, kind of provocative. White takes up the gauntlet with d5. And now another puzzling move here, queen a5. A puzzling and over-optimistic move in my view. What black should certainly have settled for here is queen takes d3, rook takes d3, and then just liquidate. It's a bit depressing to play like this against a player who's 250 elo points lower rated than you, but after bishop takes e5, you know, black can still play for the win in this situation. Rook d7, b6, the game continues, and there's always the risk in this position that white's bishop might become much worse than black's knight in the ensuing play. I presume the upcoming idea for black is just to challenge on the d file. Well, that would have probably been black's best. Queen a5 was answered by queen c4, and black played knight fd7. Takes, takes, takes on c6, and now we reach a critical situation where white is about to make a mistake. It's almost as if White doesn't believe that he can possibly be winning this game. In fact, knight b6 should lead to a decisive advantage for White, as long as he has the courage to find bishop takes b6 in this position. I don't actually see how Black can handle this position and get any sort of game at all. For instance, if he goes queen takes b6, then c7 is exceptionally strong. Something like rook a c8, rook d7, and then rook a d1. I honestly don't know why White didn't play this way. It would have left him in full control of the game. Going back to knight b6, as I say, sometimes you just get the impression the guy doesn't believe in his chances. He went queen c5, and now Black was able to play bishop takes c3, just in time to get counterplay. Okay, this is an unstereotyped move because you're giving up your fianchetto bishop, but White should have seen that this was possible. Oharon took with the queen. Black took on a2. It's obvious he's going to have counterplay now, and after b3, b takes c6, normal service had been resumed. Black has counterplay in a very unclear situation. White went queen b2, Black went queen a5, White went bishop d2, Black went queen c5, and rook de1 was answered by rook f d8, bishop e3, queen b4. In all these lines, White is hampered by the weakness of his king. h4. Is this the first sign of a White attack? Black doesn't think so. He plays rook a b8, setting up the idea of knight c4, and that's why White liquidates straight away with bishop takes b6. A takes b6, g3. Well, having played h4, this almost looks like White's going into reverse gear. But I think the problem is that, well, Black is simply threatening to take on f4 with check. So this is denying White the opportunity just to go h5, which of course is the move he would like to make. g3, rook d5, rook e2, rook bd8 shows Black in full command of the position. Black's a pawn up, and he's coordinating his pieces in the centre. White played rook he1, Black played queen to d6. Queen c3 gives the king a bit of room. Queen a3 check, queen b2. Unfortunately, White has overlooked rook d1 check. And I'm not sure what he could have done about that once the queen has left the premises on b2. Well, if White goes king b1, then rook d1 check finishes the job. So there we are. Going back to the opening, maybe g6 has a future. It certainly avoids a lot of the play that White has been developing in the a6 line when g3 is played. And so, yeah, this is just one more line that White will have to consider when he wants to play against the Scandinavian.